Hi, I'm Jeff Hajek, the owner and founder of Relaction. This video is part of my lean training system. It was originally released as a DVD a long time ago, but times have changed and the look of some of these LTS videos is now a bit dated. The content is still spot on though. So rather than just discontinue the line, I am posting the majority of each of the 36 videos here, with the remainder available at Relaction Videos. That's our video service where you can download a wealth of supporting content and watch subscriber-only videos. I recommend subscribing and hitting the notification button if you want to make sure you don't miss any new content. I would also really appreciate if you would hit the like button if this video is helpful and you want to see more content similar to it. The like button helps us get found on YouTube, but it also lets us figure out where you want us to put our future effort. Now enjoy the free version of this video. Welcome to Relaction Continuous Improvement's overview presentation on Lean. I am Jeff Hajek, the owner and founder of Relaction. I like to start each presentation by going over the objectives of what I hope you learn from it. The first and most obvious objective in an overview presentation is that I want you to understand what I mean when I say lean. And I like to show you that you already use many of the concepts that form the foundation of lean. A lot of this philosophy is intuitive in your personal life. I want to give you some insight into what it means to go down the lean path. And I want you to get a good understanding as to why companies take on the challenge of creating a lean organization. Finally, and most importantly for the frontline employees watching this presentation, I want you to see that lean can benefit you as well as help your company. So the first question is, what is lean? When you look at lean with a big picture view, it is really just a relentless attack on waste. It is a way of going after waste continuously to be able to free up resources to create more customer value. Now, the term lean has evolved quite a bit over the years. That's in large part because there is no official lean owner. There are some major players who have quite a bit of influence, and as you're probably finding out, there are many different takes on what being lean really means. Think of it as a term like human resources, management, or leadership. There's a lot of different ways that people can look at the nuances of those terms, even though the broad concept is consistent. Over time, you and your company will distill this down into your own flavor of lean. But as you do that, you will undoubtedly come across the Japanese take on that flavor. The modern version of lean was heavily influenced by Toyota, so it makes sense that there will be a healthy dose of Japanese terminology in lean. Now, one of the things that I've learned over the years in my approach to lean is that labels and definitions can be quite limiting. The truth is that I tend to prefer people don't call this approach lean. We could just as easily say that we are embracing the concept of doing more with less. Or we could look at it as a very disciplined approach to goal setting in which we use precise problem-solving methods to take down any obstacles we face. But one of my favorites, as you might imagine from the name of my company, the full name is Relaction Continuous Improvement, is continuous improvement. It allows for you to add in any tools or concepts or management systems that get you closer to your goals. This broad brushstroke label lets you steal from Lean, Six Sigma, the theory of constraints, the Toyota production system, JIT, all the different theories and mentalities to get the perfect blend for your organization. But in reality, what I have learned over and over is that much of lean is just common sense. We gravitate to a rather extensive list of the concepts within these disciplines in our own lives when we have our own time and money and happiness at stake. If I was to ask you where lean started, many of you might mention Toyota. Some of you might reference the book The Machine That Changed the World, published in 1990. But with the more liberal interpretation of what lean is from the last few slides, where do you now think that the first example of lean thinking actually was? I'd argue that the drive for continuous improvement is as old as mankind. Early man created scrapers to make jobs easier and to be able to provide more valuable items to their primitive clans. And like all things, when something works well, it is quickly adapted to other uses. Lean migrated to the office shortly after it made its first appearance. Early man documented their processes up on the walls of their caves. I show these images only partly in jest. My point is that there is an innate drive in people to try to do more with less and to do things better. While the packaging of lean is new, the underlying philosophy, the commitment to improvement, goes way back in time. Now, when you can harness that underlying philosophy into a corporate culture, you've got something special, and that is the real fuel that powers lean. The tools are nice, but those continuously evolve and get replaced. What creates consistency for a company is the culture. Let's focus on a few key words here. A shared improvement culture is a collective mindset that the entire organization buys into. They all see that they not only have the power to make improvements, but that their improvement attempts will ultimately be successful. Further, they understand that they get the authority to make improvements, but recognize that this means that they must also accept the responsibility to make improvements. People must believe that improving processes is part of their job. A strong culture has little social loafing within it. Everybody contributes. Now, if this was easy, everyone would have a great continuous improvement culture. The problem is that a corporate culture simply can't be faked for more than a short time. If you don't ingrain shared values, you won't get a culture of improvement. And you can't have managers force a culture. You can force behaviors, but you can't make people think in a particular way. Creating a like-minded culture takes effort. A continuous improvement culture also requires optimism. That is far more rare than you might imagine. People tend to be rather pessimistic when it comes to work. They expect the worst. Far more people complain about their job than talk about how much they love it. But if you can convince people that lean has something in it for them, and back up that belief, then you have a chance of molding a culture of continuous improvement. And if you get a strong improvement culture going, great things happen. History is full of examples of an improvement mindset leading to leaps forward in production innovation. I hope you are getting something valuable out of this video. If you want to get more out of this program, we recommend watching it on Valaction Videos. You'll be able to watch the entire video, mostly ad-free, and view subscriber-only programs. You'll also have access to a load of continuous improvement downloads. Let's look at some examples that typify the lean mindset. A rather advanced concept in lean is automation, or automation with a human touch. While this example from many centuries ago doesn't necessarily have the built-in smartness, a way to stop the machine if there's a problem, it did accomplish something very special. It gave people the opportunity to separate themselves from manual work. A person could be bagging flour while the mill was crushing grain for them, greatly improving efficiency. In the modern world, we replace menial work with robots. There's often the fear that automation will take away jobs, but in the course of human history, automation has paved the way for bigger and better use of people's brains instead of their bodies. One more thing. If you are observant, you'll notice the Japanese term jidoka for automation. A core tenet of lean is the relentless pursuit and elimination of waste. One of the first great inventions of mankind occurred solely for this purpose. The wheel made life easier. The term muri means overburden or strain. It's spelled M-U-R-I. Carrying baskets to market was physical, taxing work, and very limiting. Putting a set of wheels on a cart let a person haul much larger loads with less effort and took far less time to haul the same amount of material. Lean also has a very strong emphasis on quality. In many ways, quality is a byproduct of lean efforts. The single-minded focus on process and consistency drives quality. Plus, fixing problems with products, or rework as it is called, is waste. So, eliminate the problems and you eliminate waste. Eli Whitney, most widely known for his development of the cotton gin, also popularized a key concept of quality, specifically interchangeable parts. While he didn't actually come up with the idea, he made great strides in both the technical side of it and in promoting it as a viable concept. As the story goes, he received a contract to produce somewhere around 10,000 muskets for the U.S. government during the Revolutionary War era. At the time, weapons manufacture was a one-off production process that required skilled artisans. He was running late on delivery and was called to the carpet to explain himself. He proceeded to pull apart some piles and assemble a musket on the spot, something previously unheard of. As it turns out, there's a belief that the demonstration was staged and he had marked the parts he was going to use. But despite this, he still did a great deal to promote the quality needed to get to interchangeable parts. There's also a lesson here on the continuous improvement mindset. When Whitney landed his government contract, he wasn't yet capable of producing enough muskets. He knew, though, that he would be able to improve existing processes enough to do so. That's at the heart of the culture I've been talking about, a belief and confidence in improvement. And probably the most famous forward thinker in modern production was Henry Ford. There is a misconception that he invented the assembly line. That's not true. It was in use at the Venetian Arsenal, a shipbuilding facility, at least as early as the year 1320 and possibly earlier. It was also seeing inroads into a handful of companies in the early 1800s. But Henry Ford really perfected and popularized the concept in the early 1900s and claims credit for the first powered moving assembly line. His big contribution to society was to open up higher-end products to the masses. As for lean, his contribution was the concept of flow. An assembly line prevents batching. You can only work on one item at a time, and it doesn't sit in a pile anywhere waiting to be worked on. Obviously, modern lean did not happen instantly. There has been a steady parade of new ideas that combined to give us what we know today as lean. I've already talked about interchangeable parts and the progression of the assembly line. I mentioned the bedrock for the concept of jidoka in regards to separating people from machines in windmills. The full concept of automation really came to life in the looms of Sakichi Toyoda, of the namesake family of modern Toyota. He invented a loom that would stop when a thread broke, preventing further problems. Taiichi Ohno and Shigeo Shingo were revolutionary thinkers in post-World War II Japan and helped Toyota become what it is today. W. Edwards Deming was a man of many skills, but is widely known for his emphasis on quality. He gave us his 14 points and the Deming cycle, now known primarily as PDCA. The term lean first started appearing around 1900-ish, with many people, as I mentioned, crediting the machine that changed the world as its origin point. The lean office followed relatively shortly after lean had gained substantial popularity. And the Toyota Way, published in 2001, really accelerated the concept of lean. Since then, lean has been finding new fields to venture into, such as government, healthcare, service, and education. I want to make it clear that this timeline is far from complete. We will continue to add to it, and it will evolve over time. The term lean may even fade in popularity, or should I say will fade. It will eventually be replaced by some new concept. But that new philosophy will still have the ingrained continuous improvement culture that I mentioned. It is also worth mentioning one more thing in case you get the trivia question in Lean Jeopardy somewhere down the road. Taiichi Ohno is widely considered to be the father of modern lean. As part of the lean training system this video comes from, we offer a variety of lean Lego training packages. These include our lean Lego flow simulation, mistake proofing or poka-yoke lean Lego exercise, and our visual controls and 5S lean Lego exercise. We've also got an office flow simulation for those not implementing continuous improvement on the shop floor. Click the links in the description below or click on cards that pop up on this video to learn more. We'll also add links at the end. Sometimes people can't really relate to the history of lean, but they probably already have quite a few ways that they are already practicing lean in their own homes. Making that connection to these concepts and realizing that they are not anything foreign to them eases some of their anxiety about change. I like to steal a page from Jeff Foxworthy's playbook to illustrate this point. He had a routine where he would tell "you might be a redneck" jokes. So, you may already be lean if you prefer the picture on the left to the one on the right. It is pretty obvious why. You can find the utensil you want immediately, and you know whether it is even there in an instant. In the pile, you might have to search through it for a while before you realize that there are no teaspoons in there. This is called 5S. It stands for sort, straighten, scrub, standardize, and sustain. Most of you also use this item. When it gets out of balance, it shuts itself off. That concept is known as jidoka, or automation with a human touch. Essentially, smart automation that prevents further problems. If you are familiar with recipes, you are also familiar with the concept of standard work. Both prescribe a specific series of steps, and they both call for a specific amount of material. Standard work also defines who does which step, which you might also see when you have a sous chef working with you. Recipes also line up nicely with the concept of takt time. You produce to the pace of demand. You pull out the recipe and ingredients only when there is a meal coming up and people are hungry. You can tell if you are guilty of the worst form of waste if your barbecue has a trailer hitch. I'm guessing that if you were to look into your backyard, you'd probably see something more similar to the left-hand picture than the right-hand picture. Most of us don't have an industrial-sized grill. We don't cook up a month's worth of burgers at once. We only cook what we need for a single meal. The reasons we don't are pretty obvious. We might not need all those burgers later. Some might go bad or get lost in the back of the fridge, or perhaps people might want something else. And even if we did want to stock up, we probably wouldn't have the room to do so. The key point is that not only do we not tend to build ahead at home, but we don't even get the urge to do so. In fact, we probably couldn't even if we wanted to, because we don't typically keep a whole lot of meat stocked up in the house. We intuitively know why we shouldn't overproduce. But overproduction in manufacturing feels right because it has instantaneous local efficiency. You can really get a lot of burgers flipped if that is your whole focus. The problem is that everything else suffers as a result. At home, we are responsible for the whole production process and the supply chain, so we see the big picture. At work, we typically just get a little sliver of responsibility, so we focus on that. Bottom line, overproduction creates all sorts of other waste, which we seem to recognize at home pretty readily. Now, this example is starting to become a bit outdated now that most payments are made online, but I think most people still use the occasional check. When you get partway through your stack of checks, you come across this reorder form. It is a signal to place an order. In Lean, a signal to tell you to order, produce, or transport something is called a Kanban. With the checkbook, the reorder form is normally on the front of your last checkbook. You place the order, and as your supply dwindles, the printer is making your new box of checks. The most common form of Kanban in the workplace is the Kanban card. It is a bit more scientific than this reorder form. Proper Kanbans require that you calculate out usage based on demand, lead time, order quantities, and supplier reliability, and then you come up with the appropriate size of the bins for your materials. And our final example is another one that is evolving with changing times, but still among the best examples in a household for this Lean tool. For those of you who are a bit younger, the image on the left is an old movie projector. They were often used in schools, but many people had home movie cameras with a big box of old home movies and needed a smaller home version of this projector. Watching family videos meant bringing out the screen, pulling out a table, setting up the projector, and then meticulously threading the film through a series of pins, pulleys, trapdoors, and other assorted widgets to the opposite reel. The home video was always just a few minutes long, and then it had to be re-spooled back onto the original reel. Needless to say, watching videos wasn't an every-night occurrence. But then videotapes came along, but they still required rewinding and they were a pain to find the right spot. The advent of DVDs meant you could skip to right where you wanted and you didn't have to rewind. And now that time is even lower. Video files are probably in your pocket right now on your phone, and you could be watching in a matter of seconds. Or you can check your social media accounts and see a whole bunch of videos. The point is that what used to take 20 minutes or more to set up now takes 20 seconds or less. The Lean term for this, not surprisingly, is setup reduction. Long setup times are one of the biggest reasons we batch in manufacturing. Machines take an extremely long time to switch between products, so we run a big batch to amortize that setup time. If we took an hour to set up for a part that takes 3 minutes to produce, we'd only be able to produce a few items a day. But if we batch, we can set up once or twice a day and run more than 100 parts on the same machine. Of course, that means only a few types of parts per day though, which means huge bins of parts to tide us over until the next run. But if we cut the setup time in half, we could run 4 parts for half as long. If we cut it in half again, down to 15 minutes, we could run 8 types of parts per day, and so on. Lower setup times reduce inventory and limits overproduction. Get more out of our Lean Training System videos with our Continuous Improvement Companion. It's closing in on 1,000 pages of great content. It is currently available as a download with a subscription to Action Videos and as a license through our store. You can also get a free version of it by signing up for our newsletter. Click the links in the description below or click on the cards that pop up on this video to learn more. We'll also add links at the end. So that's what Lean concepts look like in your home. Let's talk about what they look like in the workplace. Actually, let's start with a view of how a traditional company might be set up. They will likely be organized by function. In this example, you see the cutting cell, the weld cell, and the machining cell. There will be large batches of each product type. Again, this is caused by long setup times. You will likely see piles of inventory around the facility. Now, I would like to point out that I have labeled this image as batch manufacturer. You'll never hear someone set up like this refer to themselves as a batch manufacturer. They call themselves a manufacturer. They typically don't see a problem with how they produce. The first thing you'll likely notice in this lean version of the same production facility is that there is a lot more open floor space. You'll also see that machines are located closely together without any inventory between them. A key driver in this reduction in floor space is a lower need for places to put materials. With big batches, you need a place to store the incoming goods and the outgoing goods. Plus, the transportation routes generally need a lot of space when the loads are large. This is all done to accommodate flow. That means that the product goes from machine to machine without stopping. The way this is accomplished is to organize by product family rather than by function. Unfortunately, the mentality of big work cells means that we often have large, multifunction, high-speed machines designed to produce hundreds or thousands of parts at a time. These machines often have long setup times. We also like to keep all of our punches together, the folding machines together, all our welders in one area, etc. That adds to travel time and encourages batching. Product-oriented work cells means splitting up functions and often replacing multifunction machines with several small machines. A row of 3 right-sized automatic drill presses can, for example, cheaply replace a large machine. Now, it is true that the small, dedicated machines are less efficient at doing their piecework than the big machines. But all the overhead that goes into getting that part into and out of the machine is often much more streamlined. Lean manufacturers shift their focus from local optimization to global optimization. Now granted, product-oriented cells do require a certain volume of work to make sense. If you are a job shop, it might be hard, but most companies can find a substantial portion of their work that could be organized like this. Lean companies also control inventory better. Rather than build to plans or schedules released throughout the operation, one point controls the flow of work. They signal to upstream operations when to release the next item. You may have to get a bit creative. You might have to give the sequence of work to an upstream operation so they know what to build, but the downstream operation controls when to build. This operation uses open squares on a floor to signal the work cells to build more. You may also see Kanban cards or empty carts used as signals. The key is to only produce what your downstream customer asks for. You also see level loading or jidoka on assembly lines. This means a rhythmical sequence of model variations. As I mentioned earlier, there are quite a few Japanese terms in use in Lean. I tend to try to use the common word when the term is obscure, and the Japanese term when it is in common usage. Kanban, poka, yoke, and kaizen are all fairly mainstream. Jidoka tends to be a bit less well known, so I gravitate towards using level loading. Regardless of the term you choose, what it means is that if you build products A, B, and C, you would not build A, B, B, C, C. you would build ABAC ABAC. It smooths out the usage of parts and also allows for creative management of any imbalances in the amount of work for the models. Now, this only works for similar models. Significantly different models should be produced on separate lines. So how does a company migrate from the left picture on the previous slide to the right one? There are a variety of lean tools that you can use. I'm not going to get into detail on each of these items. This isn't even an all-inclusive list. The point is that there are a lot of tools that you need to learn and put to use to create a high-performing lean operation. Some are tools that improve hands-on work. Others are tools used to actually make improvements. And some are management tools used to create a business system that supports improvement. There are two takeaways here. The first is that you should be reassured that any problems you will face have a tool someone has already refined to help you solve it. And a nice thing about having a long list of tools to choose from is that you'll have some good options on how to resolve whatever issues you are facing. The second takeaway is that there is a lot to the nuts and bolts of continuous improvement. It is going to be a long journey with a lot of learning and trial and error to get you where you need to go. This video comes from Velaction's Lean Training System, which takes a module-based approach to learning about continuous improvement. Modules include a PowerPoint presentation and student guides for every video, plus there are many exercises and quizzes as well. There's also a whole host of supporting content in the form of terms in our Continuous Improvement Companion and downloadable articles. Our modules are currently available in our store and as downloads at Velaction Videos. Click the links in the description below or click on the cards that pop up on this video to learn more. We'll also add links at the end. You will often see the tools on the last page organized into a lean house. The concept of the lean house is commonly associated with the Toyota production system, but has become fairly widespread in a range of variants. The slide is often presented as a long class where it is built up little by little with a discussion about each component. It is a great way to present it, but a little lengthy for an overview presentation. There are a few things I'd like to highlight here though. The first is that there are a handful of foundational concepts you need to get great at to have any chance of success. You've got to have a spirit of continuous improvement because there will be hiccups. And you need consistency in both the workplace with 5S and in your processes with standard work. The two key pillars are keeping inventory in check through just-in-time supply and through building quality into your processes with jidoka. Again, jidoka is a term for smart automation. All those things are designed to keep people, machines, and materials working in harmony to produce great products. The roof is symbolic of the need to connect all of your operations with goals. Without aggressive goals, you won't improve. One common misconception about lean is that it is a set of tools. It is easy to see why. The tools are easy to learn, and they are the part that are most observable. But they are not the only part of lean. Lean also requires a shift in culture. That means that people need to think differently about the business. Without an underlying change in the culture, the tools tend to flounder. As you might expect, changing a culture is far, far more difficult than learning tools. But when you combine a change in culture with a new set of tools, you can create a business management system. The structure of a system means that everyone will be in alignment on what they are trying to accomplish. It also means that people can come and go much more easily. That means less time spent figuring things out and more time spent moving the operation forward. Now, no company is going to change up how they do business without a good reason. It is even more true when that thing that they are trying takes a lot of work and has a 3 in 4 chance of under-delivering on its promise. So what is the good reason that makes companies jump on board the lean train? This acronym is a good reason. It is the common breakdown of categories of metrics: quality, delivery, cost, safety, and morale. Safety is an always thing because it is the right thing to do. Nobody should ever fear that they will come home from work injured or not come home at all. But that said, it does have something in common with the rest of these categories. They translate into money, into higher profits for your company. That's the real reason companies change what they are doing. It's as simple as that. If you are one of the quarter of companies that try continuous improvement and are successful at it, you've got a big windfall in store. And that's because about 3/4 lean helps your company in two big ways. Before I move on, though, I want to make sure you understand that lean has to offer some large benefits to entice companies to take it on. It is a lot of work. It is actually a huge amount of work. It makes people leave their comfort zone. It takes a long time, and about 3/4 of companies fall short. If there were not some massive potential benefits, lean would simply not be worth it. Let's think of how the typical company operates. I show this slide and people often object. They argue that the percent of value-added work is much higher. Then I start asking what the HR department produced today. I'll ask how much time the leadership team spent in meetings. And I'll tell them to go out and look into their scrap bins. I'll ask them to take a picture of the production area to freeze time and tell me how many people are actually doing something that adds value to a product versus how many are doing something else, moving parts, adjusting a machine, reading a document, calling for help, or anything that isn't changing the form, fit, or function, and people start to cave a bit. A common estimate is that only about 5% of work is value added, the stuff that you wouldn't be embarrassed to itemize on a bill to the customer. That means 95% of the work that is done is non-value added. The most common impression of lean is that it is intended to increase the ratio of value-added work to waste. That is true, but is also incomplete. But before I move on, I want to address how much you should expect to be able to increase the green in this picture. Here, it looks like about 30% value added. That would be miraculous. I've heard stories that Toyota, arguably one of the leanest companies around, says it has about 10% value added. Regardless, the goal is to make the green a bigger percentage. But the underestimated benefit of lean is that it not only lets you get a bigger slice of the pie, it lets you cut it from a larger pie. Lean helps growth. It delivers higher quality products faster and at a lower cost. Think about all the ways you can turn this into a competitive advantage. You can promote your higher quality and charge more. You can sell your products at a lower price than your competitors. You can ship smaller quantities. You can customize more. You can offer shorter lead times. The bottom line is that lean is more than a cost. Now, you may be convinced that lean is good for your company, but that is only half of the battle to get it adopted. The frontline team has to see that there is something in it for them. Thanks for watching this extended free version of our Lean Training System module video. If you want to watch the whole video, check it out at Valaction Videos. If you want to make sure you don't miss the next LTS video that we post, please be sure to subscribe down below. We also always appreciate likes as it helps us get viewed more and makes us keep adding additional content. Thanks for watching, and best wishes on your continuous improvement journey.